So, God bless you. Thank you for joining me. So, today is what most people would celebrate as Christmas. What I want to do is talk about something related to that. I know that we just did all those videos and I was showing you scripturally that Jesus wasn't born in December. What I want to do here is share something that I don't think I've ever talked about, but we've talked about the month of Nisan before. That is the first month of the year. And if we look at the Bible passages for when Moses was alive, when all of the things were instituted, Passover, Pentecost, etc., and when we look at the month of Nisan, when Jesus was alive, we can see that these events happened on the same day. And I've talked about this before in other videos, and for time purposes, of course, I'm not going to do that today. But of course, when Passover, the first Passover was instituted, the Passover lamb was slaughtered on Nisan 14, which happened to be the fourth day, which happens to be our Wednesday. I've talked to you before in multiple videos about Jesus not being crucified on a Friday, he was crucified on a Wednesday. So when we look at the calendar for the month of Nisan, when Moses was here, as well as Jesus, these events overlap. So Passover is the 14th of Nisan. We have Pentecost following, and the same time frame with Moses to Jesus. In the month of Sivan, the 8th, which would be the first day, would be when Pentecost was. And in Moses's time, that is when the festival Sabbath was and the 10 commandments were given, etc. So all of these things coincide, and the calendars are exactly the same if we overlay them. So I had mentioned that I believe Jesus was born in the fall. So what I wanted to do, because if we think about this scripturally, if Jesus was crucified on Passover and the Holy Spirit was poured out on Pentecost, we have this Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot, in the fall. And I don't believe that anything is happenstance. So if Jesus was killed and slaughtered on Passover, the Holy Spirit is poured out on Pentecost, it would make sense that Jesus would be born in the fall at Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles. Now, that to me makes sense because I don't think God just picked some random date, but I don't have a Bible passage to state that. I just think that it makes logical sense. If we have the Passover lamb being slaughtered on Passover, we have the Holy Spirit being poured out on Pentecost, we have this Feast of Tabernacles and Sukkot in the fall. So I wanted to look and see the year that Jesus was born, when was Feast of Tabernacles, when was Sukkot? And I tried to find it, but here's the thing, I can't find it. So what I discovered, though, was very interesting. When they were putting the calendar together, they didn't use a zero. So they went from 1 BC to 1 AD, but we need a zero in there because 1 BC to 1 AD, there's some time missing. So they never used a zero. Now, I'm not talking about the years because we've talked about missing years before. So I'm not certain that the years are correct. But if we know that King Herod died in 4 BC, then of course Jesus would have been born before that. And we know, of course, that King Herod tried to have him killed. It tells us in Matthew 2:16, then Herod, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, was exceedingly angry, and he sent forth and put to death all the male children who were in Bethlehem and in all its districts from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had determined from the wise men. So we know that Herod tried to kill him, but we know that Herod died in 4 BC. So what was the exact year that Jesus was born? And they didn't use a zero. So there isn't any way I'm able to figure out when Sukkot would be or Feast of Tabernacles for those years because I just don't know. But it makes sense if Jesus is crucified on Passover and the Holy Spirit is poured out on Pentecost, it would make sense that the fall festival, a Feast of Tabernacles, and Sukkot would be significant. And that's the year that I think he was born, whatever year that was. Armor up, we ride at dawn. May God bless you as always. Have a great day.